Welcome, Fablers, to the official start of your weekend. This is, of course, Fox Talks, the only show on Fable 42 Network devoted to all the other shows on the Fable 42 Network, where we build community through friendship, gaming, and a general distrust of our DMs. Chaos. I'm your host, Rona Fox. Back with me this week, back from his sabbatical. Also forgiving Cody. Say hello, Cody.
Hello, hello.
And, of course, the one that never left, Mr. Solo. Say hello, Chris.
Hello, Chris.
It's your first time joining us. Glad to have you. Welcome. And I'm sorry. This is basically a show where we take a factual look back at this week's campaigns and put a Fox twist on all the choices that were made. Tonight, we will sit down with no guests, just me. Sorry. And you're welcome. It's just the recaps. So basically, looking ahead to tonight, we get on Vault 42. The crew plus a few make their way to a place that resembles downtown Chicago. And on Legends of Shalgal, Rex's evolved form Cass will lead the group towards the glacier. And lastly, on Realms of Ukador, we watch as our buddies are forced to do something they rarely do, deal with their feelings. But before we get into all that, let's do some sponsors and announcements. First up is Griffin Co. Everything that you see that is on those streams that is 3D printed is brought to you by Griffin Co. So big shout out to them. And Vorpal Board. So if you guys are playing remotely, like everybody should be, check out our friends at Vorpal Board. They give you the power to play any game using their table streaming and component scanning technology, which is really dope. So check them out. Other mentions include our Patreon. You can follow the link there to find out how to support us through that and all the benefits that you will receive for doing so, including things like short form content, community-based games, be able to watch the prom that's coming up. Is it this Sunday? When is it?
Yeah, it's on Sunday at noon.
Man, Sunday at noon. Chris is totally ready for it. He's been slaving away, so that should be good.
Prom tickets.
Oh, yeah, and prom tickets, which you can buy separately if you aren't already a Patreon subscriber. And you can do that through Ko-Fi, which is our next announcement. Follow the link there to find out all the different benefits you get for that, as well as the benefits we receive for your contributions. As far as the videos, all of our stuff is on demand through Twitch, but it's also through YouTube. So we would like for you to go check it out there. Like, subscribe, comment, do all the YouTube things. And yeah, that'd be great. As well as podcasts. So I think the three shows that I discuss are all in podcast form. I think we're pretty close to having Adventures in Middle Earth up in podcast form as well. So check that out in all your podcast acquired things. Prom I just mentioned, that will be this Sunday at noon. So check it out. It is the Wizards of Ukador. We will sit down and all sort of watch a very, very interesting and unique experience. So I'm excited because I have no idea what happened. And now that most of our questions have been answered, we get to go back and kind of retrospectively go aha together. So check that out. And then this is, of course, Black History Month. During this month, it's obviously important to recognize Black history and be aware of inclusiveness on all fronts. However, that goes without saying that should not just be limited to this month, that we appreciate Black culture and creativity. Speaking of which, the reason we don't have any guests tonight is following the show, directly top of the hour, we have our next Color of Change special panel. It's called Black Creators in Gaming. It has our very own GW and the Casual Campbell, so it's going to be good. So stay tuned after the recaps for that. And I think that's it. So I still have no idea what I'm doing. You have nothing better to do. So let's start some Fox Talks. Cody, good to have you back. Hit me with that intro.
Will do.
Okay, so we're gonna that never used to it. So we're gonna skip the pleasantries tonight because of that panel. I want to make sure that we give them enough time for the lead in and stuff like that. So we are going to go right into the recaps. Yeah, I think that's it. So without further ado, as you all know, the Fable 42 campaigns are all about the choices that were made. Let's start Ronan's recap, see how they did. First up, As always, Vault 42, episode 13. Almost called it Vault 13. Vault 42, episode 13. And it's called Addicted. So we pick up this week with Marcus peeking into Rita's bag of goodies. Don't worry, it was consensual. He looks in and sees a large variety of explosives. Big ones, little ones. She's basically brought her entire Etsy shop to this show. She's like one of those illegal fireworks stands operated by the dude in the dirty white shirt with 3 fingers. She reiterates that this was her job to sell this stuff and that she can handle herself in a scuffle. Already more equipped than most of our group. Even so, Marcus worries that she won't be able to handle her emotions. Typical man. See, this is why Klondike was better off without. Speaking of emotional train wrecks, Rita asks after Petra, wondering why she's not there, and after learning that she ran off, Rita asks if she stole from them too. They dodged the question, but yeah, you're damn right she did. Not only did she make off with the Santa sack full of caps, she also took quite literally everything from Clay. She stole his heart, defiled his innocence, and left him quite literally with a festering wound that has pushed him to the brink of death. Very similar to one of my relationships. Still the worst, third worst one I've been in. To reassure the group, Rita says that she has experience and reminds the group of the landmines that damn near turned them into confetti at Hannah's. Once they settle in, the group is then concerned that she may have been followed. During this conversation, she does tell them that she ran into some of the people that came to town looking for Clay. Heavily armored dudes. It's either the Enclave or the security guards from the anime convention looking for the nerd that snuck in without paying and got a bit handsy with the booth babes. Tipper says that she could use the extra ammo, but wants to make sure that Rita won't hurt Petra. Although I don't think Tipper has much to worry about. If anyone's going to harm Petra, my money's on Clay. Rita says that she's got no hard feeling against Petra. You'll remember that it was James and not Rita that expressed his rock hard feelings to Petra, so they should be good. After all that, they tentatively allow her to join, despite Mash's objections. And as it is now getting later, it's settled that Marcus will room with Tipper and Ash will board with Rita and will take watch. Before the evening ends, Tipper wants to check in on Clay, but that door is still locked. He just needs some alone time to drain his wound. Get your minds out of the gutter. So she'll head to bed. Meanwhile, Marcus will eat one of his pre-made meals, which we learn may be dog food, which may sound disgusting, but is a Michelin star meal compared to that shit Tipper was serving. Ash, on the other hand, will head to the bar looking for some food. She asks for some more Viking beer, but that's like trying to find caviar at a local gas station. She settles for some rad roach stew, which is the equivalent of that shit that sits at the bottom of a garbage disposal. She then returns to the room to see Rita asleep using her bag of grenades as a pillow. I have no idea why this group has reservations about her. She's the exact kind of crazy stupid they roll with. A perfect fit, fucking Lincoln Logs. During the night, Tipper will crawl over Marcus, standing over him while he sleeps like a creepy stalker. Paranoia jolting him awake. Once there, she wastes no time in asking why he doesn't want Rita there. Super pressing, obviously couldn't wait till he was awake. This is the same tactic my 6-year-old uses to ask me which is my least favorite crayon. He ignores the intrusion and tells Tipper that Rita's connections may prove a problem, consumed by her own mission. But honestly, I think he's thinking about this the wrong way. Crazy ex-girlfriend is exactly what you need. She's basically a kamikaze with nothing but bloodlust on her mind. Trust me, that's quite motivating. Trust me. As morning comes, they can hear the voices coming from within the bar portion of the tavern. Even Clay hears it as he wakes up next to his Petra body pillow, was feeling significantly better. Physically. He hears something about the armadillos and how the group is going after them. Clay will head over to the bar and get some grub. Dirty water, dirty food, dirty women. At least Clay's consistent. Tries to eat alone, starting to look a little real depressed, really going from Naruto to the grave of the fireflies. Meanwhile, Tipper's outside salvaging and comes back in to see the bright pink Eeyore. Ash wakes up next to the chipper voice of Rita. Nothing worse than a morning person. It's unnatural, like the fact that someone like Marcus made it to adulthood. Rita's nails on the chalkboard have Ash looking ready to leave immediately. Once everyone is there, the group, headed by June, approaches to talk about the plan. They grab breakfast while Ash talks to the bartender. She asks about spices, and I know what you're thinking. Wow, she's going to do something nice for Tipper. But honestly, if I had to eat Tipper's food, I'd also do everything in my power to make sure it stays down. Good luck and Godspeed. June tells them that if they are serious about taking on Robco, then they have 3 people that could help, and they could pay them if they could return some of the menfolk. Marcus makes sure that she's aware of the risks, saying that if there's gunplay, people could die. However, if his aim is anything like his perception, I don't think anyone has to worry about dying by his hand. June, like Rita, is also better equipped than our group, so they're hard pressed to refuse to help. She's got a submachine gun, which makes our shit that our group's been using look like cap guns. Speaking of pitiful weapons, Clay tells the group that he has to go pick up his blade from Serena. That lady, the lady from Martha's comes in and seeing that the group is serious about helping, decides to give Clay the actual antibiotics, which he had not done the day before. Turns out he had just taken some sugar pills. But wait, he got better after the sugar pills. That fits. Anime nerd also has diabetes. This group is like the worst people to have in the wasteland. It'd be like a hipster trying to become a logger. Sorry, dude, it's going to take more than a beard and some flannel. So once everyone is in agreement, they now have 8 people storming Robco. Well, 7 and a tipper. Clay makes off towards Serena's. Rita will follow, which will cause Ash to follow. Rita catches up to Clay to tell him about the people that had been looking for him. He takes her off to the side to ensure that she didn't say anything to anyone and make sure that she was not followed. Clay leaves her agitated by the situation and heads to Serena's. He pays no attention to the kid playing with Marcus's deadly toys. He picks up the sword and tells Serena that despite what she may think, that he is not there to help her. Oh no, he is doing this for something far more noble than saving a town. He's going to check on the non-biological father of a girl he knew for like a week before she left him into a big pile of emo mush. But speaking of cutting, his blade has some upgrades, so that's a plus. Before he leaves, he tells her that if anyone comes after him, that he was never there. After final preparations are made, they're ready to set off towards Andrews, after waiting for chatty Cathy Rita to finish up her damn idle conversation. June warns them of possible dangers, nothing big, just the occasional death claw, so this should be a breeze. The gang heads out. Ash watches Rita, Marcus watching Ash, Clay trying to avoid everyone. Nothing like a group built on trust. Of course, the silence is killing Rita, who is like that one person at work that you only ever engage with if you're looking to kill an hour or two. She goes on to talk about something called Lady Cakes, which I thought was a strip club. It turns out to be some sort of food. This opens up the conversation to cooking with our own talkative one, Tipper, and I'm officially heard more intelligent conversations among pigeons on a rooftop. Rita then proves my point by tripping and damn near falling, but is caught by Clay. They played it off like it was no big deal, but fuck me, she's carrying enough explosives to turn the Commonwealth into an island and creating a ton of body parts to supply Diane's campaigns for the foreseeable future. For this, Ash calls her a liability, which our megaphone repeats for all to hear. They killed her father figure, ruined her plans for revenge, and then called her a liability. Word of advice, probably shouldn't pile on the emotionally unstable Unabomber guys, but what the fuck do I know? But then they try to justify their killing of Harry, which I don't know, seemed right at the time, but now I'm thinking that they should have just let the monster kill Hannah. She was in love with a mutant, and we don't knock Marcus for the exact same thing. Speaking of, he is currently speaking with June, who wants to know why he's out here doing this particular job. He says it's because he's got a soft spot for the people in these situations. Now who's emotional? Marcus then asked June to meet with the leader of Andrews for more information on the compound. As they travel further south, they do notice some greener vegetation, which apparently cheers up Ash, who puts on some music. Let's go ahead and break out the red solo cups because this officially counts as a party here in the Texas wasteland. Tipper asked June about a Mr. Handy, but she's a self-sufficient woman who needs not a man nor robot to satisfy her needs. Seems Tipper wants to know more about the types of robots and seems surprised that none of them are sentient. Marcus covers up her curiosity by claiming that she has a soft spot for robots, which of course June misconstrues as being a robot lover. Oof, been on that forum. Things got weird real quick. Weird fetishes aside, they eventually come up to a dilapidated Red Rocket gas station. Odd to name a gas station after the slang word for a dog penis, but who am I to judge? As they approach, Ash goes to Clay and asks about the people following him. And get this, guys, she asks if he's all right. That's huge. Unfortunately, Clay's still being a Debbie Downer and kind of just blows her off. They decide to stop at the gas station and rest. The actual facility isn't usable as it's all caved in, but there are cars. Tipper wants to know if anyone's hungry. Rita and a few others express interest, but like most first-time viewers of this show, they will quickly regret that decision. She fires up some random meat, adds about a half pound of sugar, and voila, a wonderful meal unless you're trying to watch your insulin levels. Clay. Speaking of him, he and Marcus will go check out the cars, which have up until this point been a source of constant joy and supplies. They find a old dirty teddy bear, and I was waiting for Marcus's reaction, as I'm sure he thought it was an actual bear. He also finds some Jet and a Grognak comic book. Clay finds 22 bottle caps, Nuka-Cola, and some dirty water. But while they're there looking, they hear some skittering noises. It's not Petra looking for her next lay, it's just a bunch of rad roaches. But instead of preparing to dodge their attacks, they instead dodge an explosion as Rita tossed a grenade, turning the area into its own rad roach stew, which Tipper takes advantage of by collecting the bits. Camp is set up and the food is dished out, which tastes like birthday cake that you found in a sewer drain. As they bed down, Ash will obviously elect to take first watch. Tipper and Emily, one of June's friends, will join. Clay will also stay awake and meditate in his tent. Feels different. He's losing some body mass and some hair. If this is what happens after getting bit, I can't wait to see what Petra looks like. Yikes. They don't see much on their watch outside of the distant glow of the town they're headed towards. During some small talk, Tipper talks about finding that dude that she knew from a long, long time ago. And I was waiting on Ash to put it all together, but at this point, that's like trying to watch grass grow in real time. Small talk will meander from Tipper's lack of experience with a shotgun and a discussion of the freakish nature of Ash to the troubles of living in a place as shitty as Texas. Last one's more of a bit of a generalization. Following that, Ash pegs Marcus with the butt of her sledge. He awakes with a yes mistress and goes to start his watch. He watches Sylvia, Emily's wife, gather wood for the fire before hearing some skittering coming from the gas station. He sees a large rat eating some of the roach bits. As long as it doesn't whip out a banjo and start singing, I think we're good. Outside of some small talk where Marcus will offend Sylvia by mansplaining the strategy, the watch ends with nothing of significance. As morning comes, Tipper offers to cook. However, some will opt out of this sweet mush, surprisingly. After a short bit of travel, they arrive at Andrews, the town outside of Robco. The town is completely trashed, garbage everywhere, very disheveled, with kids trying to catch roaches and people standing around trying to touch the clouds. Never mind what I said earlier, this is the fucking party. Marcus tries to find someone who is not high, but this musicalist Coachella has nothing like that to offer. These tweakers aren't much help as the group makes their way through the Fawks family reunion on their way to the main building. Here they meet a man named Walter that seems a bit more within his own mind. He cheeches it up as he tells them this is a result of the Kim pushers and that he couldn't do much about it. But he does make fun of Marcus as this is really the glue that binds all the characters together. They chalk it all up as a lost cause and have to pick up Tipper, who's doing a little faux tripping, and they make their way from the city. So instead, they decide to go straight for Robco to investigate prior to storming it. On their way there, they need to console Rita, who is distraught at seeing rampant drug use, reminding her of her childhood. She really needs an outlet where she can just make fun of such traumatic experiences. That shit does wonders. As the group finally approaches Robco, the sun is setting on them and this episode. So that's it. We are now right outside Robco. Nothing left but to storm it. I'm sure they'll do investigating and things like that. But knowing our group, they'll mess that up and then go headlong into a fight. So can't wait for that. And that'll be the next episode is tomorrow. So catch that. Then. Okay. So moving right along into Legends of Shah Gal. We are on. Oh man. My mustache is long. Sorry. We're on episode 17, and this is called Below Freezing. And so we pick up on the same evening in the middle of the Zylok town with Daff wanting to sniff Cass. Assuming this is not like dogs, this shouldn't be too awkward. And as I say that, Cass starts to sniff back, so never mind, that's fucking weird. Jinx tries to make the situation worse by allowing Daff to slide off her back, but the former circus clown hangs on, so it's just your standard amount of awkward. Cass hands Daff and Ratcliffe a gold coin and some bread, respectively, so he knows how to charm the homeless. Look out, Rex. Speaking of, he's leading the way to a bookstore, and after heading into more of the city center, he finds a store called Books, so who the fuck knows what's in there? Cass goes to hold the door for Rex as he just glares at the hunky Witcher-looking motherfucker. But it's cool. If Rex ever has to tell Cass what's on his mind, he could do so with a fantastic vocabulary. So, take that, Cass. As they enter the shop, the owner greets Cass, who's been there before. He was having a book repaired. Sweet shit, Rex. He reads too. You might be fucked, bro. Rex brushes it off and asks for some regional maps, but he's told he'll have to settle for the touristy versions. That is until Dreamboat Cass swoons the shopkeep into divulging just a bit more info, to the point that he almost forgot about Rex's other request for books on history, language, and culture of the dynasty. Cass hands the map over to Rex to study. Probably not the olive branch we need, but it's a start. They head to the nearby herbalist shop, which is described as moist, making it the most disgusting flower shop ever. Helmed by a Duragar. Fuck, no one tell Carrick. He'll probably kill this asshole outright, no questions asked. Frizz heads to the counter, motioning for Rex to follow. He's got a list of herbs to acquire. I have no idea what they are at this point, but I think one of them was called Ass Blossom, making the fact that the store is moist even worse. Speaking of, I think they missed a prime opportunity to stock up on gravel seed roots, although at this point, Cass may serve that function better than any herb could. They pick up some of each of the herbs and some flasks. No idea what they're making, but I guarantee Jinx is on board, as those are like two of her favorite things. Before they leave, Rex asks for some licorice root. The shopkeep tries to reach past the plant he's working on and fucking nicks himself. Plant is known as frost death and has no antidote. As the boils on his body start to freeze and he starts to seize, I'm excited because I've read enough comic books to know that we're 30 seconds away from a brand new superhero. I mean, sure, he's in a tremendous amount of pain, probably foaming at the mouth, but it's cool as Rex reads about the very fucking scientific pokies, not thorns, but pokies that are causing this reaction. Rex is going to try another impromptu surgery. Good thing the shopkeeper wasn't irky, because Rex would have just been like, bah, bitch, and bounced. With the Lollipop Guild helping, Rex will attempt to remove the pokey, and with it, scooping out chunks of necrotic flesh. Tries to cauterize it as he goes, but doesn't really have that ability. Jinx and Cass will hear a high-pitched wailing coming from the shop, obviously assuming it's Rex, and went running in to the moist, fleshy hole. As he enters, Cass cuts his own flesh, because that's what we need. Jesus, there are more chunks of meat flying in here than a ladies' night at a local Chippendales. Anyways, Cass's sword, Joe Pesci or something, I don't know, ignites in flame, and he's able to properly cauterize the wound. Once he recovers, he thanks the group. Jinx is surprised and terrified at the effects of plants, so no one explained to her how vodka is made. Rex, in return for saving the dude's life, asks for what? Devout worship? Nah. To pay it forward? Pfft, nah, don't think so. No, he tries to extort more herbs from him for free. Yikes, that's more peer pressure than the damn donation tray they pass around. He does make off with some more plants, while Mata wants the pots from the death plant, but in the end they prove too pricey for our hobos. As they exit, they don't see Mata, but more impressively, they don't hear her either. They don't seem to notice, or at the very least show any concern for the small, easily abductable friend. On the way back to the tavern, Rex will eventually send word to her, but there's no indication as to where she is, so, no problem there. As they return to the tavern, they see a drunk Brad on stage singing with what I can only imagine is an entire fraternity of bros. They were definitely wailing out to AC/DC's You Shook Me All Night Long. Rex wants to turn in early, got to get a quick start on wallowing in self-pity, but he's stopped by Jinx, who asks if he's all right. But she doesn't read any jealousy vibes. Man can't even do that right. He gives her a kiss on the forehead and says he needs to read as much as possible for the glacier, and leaves her in the strong yet strangely soft, capable, and experienced arms of Mr. Castilius. Frizz will go to the room with Rex, while Mata returns in time for the first round of ale. Brad will not be joining because he got himself a dime piece that's DTF. Daffodil will sit down at the bar working on her next song, while Jinx will sit with Cass. She wants to know about his dreamy eyes, which he says come from his order. He says that he needed to do this in order to help him achieve his goal, which is to avenge their friend Calivet. He asks her about her father's flask, and she then takes notes on all that fucked uppery, including the shadows and her visions of the others in their group. Then, because he just can't help himself, Cass has to ask about Rex. Jinx describes him as her boyfriend, which is admittedly better than what I've been calling him, the Mage-Hand Diddler. Cass seems supportive of their relationship and is complimentary of Rex, so he already treats him better than I do. And more than that, offers his room to allow Jinx and Rex some time alone, allow her to turn him into her own scratching post. Meanwhile, Cass will head off to Rex's room, showing interest in Frizz and Oscar, serving a dual purpose, to learn and to distract. After finishing her song, Daffodil heads to Cass's room, Cass's old room, the one that now has Jinx chasing Rex's laser pointer. So instead of hearing Cass, Daffodil instead hears Jinx hiss, which is probably just as Rex suggested, doggy style. Offensive because, she's a cat. But Daffodil obviously assumes the worst, but once that mess is bagged up, she goes to get the others. Everyone joins in the half-naked couple and listens to Daph's rendition of Somebody That Jinx Used to Know, a song dedicated to Cass. So that means he has 1 and Rex has 0, if anyone's keeping score. Spoilers, I am. The following morning, Jinx's pillow talk with Rex includes details of her past, i.e. Calivet and McCreepy Eyes. From there, Jinx and Rex will separate to their respective gender rooms. Rex sees Frizz looking like a cracked out Elsa after making potions for their trip. But that's the least of their concerns, as Rex sees his notes that had been perfectly organized by Cass. Just as smart and has easily and clearly had more than 4 workouts. Yikes. As they gather for breakfast, they are joined by Brad in full hangover and not appreciating the volume of our small friends who really only speak in horror movie screams. It's at this point that Brad says his goodbyes to the group, as he will not be joining them on their trip to the glacier. He may be a Goliath, but even he's not dumb enough to walk willingly into that death trap. And part of these goodbyes do include a second rendition of What Does the Oscar Say, this time a duet with Oscar himself, earning Daffodil some coin. From the town, they'll be heading south, guided by Cass, who can at least get them to the train tracks that he had been investigating. Obviously not helmed by Rex, as he is the only one not equipped with the ability to see in the current persistently dark conditions. Another point to Cass. Frizz will pass out his potions, some designed to help with the cold for Daffodil, some black tar heroin for Mata's weapon, which she wants to call Frizz Goo, so maybe it wasn't ice that was making his eyebrow stand on end. She also receives what I'm calling the golden shower, which is a vial of yellow liquid that will increase your speed. They travel for a bit before passing the perfect symbolism for this campaign as they see the derailed train. Without investigating, they continue on to the entrance of the glaciers. It's not long before some of the group spot 2 hulking figures in the distance. And most likely, thanks to Rex's shining light, they start to come towards the group, and we learn that it's 2 Yetis. And considering the general height of our group, let's just hope that all they want is a pedicure. Only one way to find out, so the fight commences. Cass immediately notices that these aren't just Yetis, they're undead Yetis, and fires a couple radiant bolts from his crossbow. Rex, being clever as usual, uses his radiant light to get the visual on the Yeti for his attacks. From there, the others get into position as best they can to prepare. And what are they preparing for, you ask? Well, that would be a giant fucking Foss ball hurled from one of the Yetis near the cave. The ice shards explode amongst the group and knocking Daffodil not only from the tree that she was in, but also unconscious. Meanwhile, the other Yeti slams his fist in the ground, sending out necrotic damage. So they're undead magic Yetis. Can I get a hashtag blame Diane in the chat, please? Cass will manage to take down the first undead wizard Yeti as they all close in on the second. The poor Yeti, who is now, I'm assuming, a widow, just tries to defend itself by sending out more necrotic death before jumping away. After some attacks, Rex does manage to complete the family side and kill the other Yeti, so yay Rex. But then that Yeti will fall from its perch into the icy water below, breaking it apart and releasing some more undead from the watery depths. Damn it, Rex. Luckily, these things are shit at hitting, so the group can make decent work of them. That is until a larger one comes up from the stream to snag Jinx and pull her under. Cass manages to continue his attacks and tells Rex to go save Jinx. He needed Cass's permission. I'm kidding. We all knew that he would do something brash regardless. And he proves me right by jumping headfirst in the dark, freezing water, like needing a doctor and settling for an optometrist. Frizz enlarges himself, not to produce more goo, but in an attempt to save Jinx, while Mata takes out the last remaining zombie. Despite their attempts, Jinx is pulled through an icy crevice into a sort of gel cell. And as she takes stock of her new surroundings, we end the episode. So again, sort of a cliffhanger. We don't really know what took Jinx, where she is exactly, and the other rest of the group's just sort of floundering around. So they're going to have to obviously dive in and go after her. So that'll be next episode, and that'll be Monday at the new time, which is 6 Pacific. All right. And last but not least, we got Realms of Ukador. We are on chapter 25, and it's called Beyond the Darkness. That is my cat, I think, banging on my door. Okay, so we pick up this week with the good buddies still standing around a recently revived Keywin in Pyriel's tower. The beautiful Goliath wizard having been slain, presumably fulfilling his desire. Before leaving, Kyriel performs the Dyson spell to vacuum up some of Voltalk's ashes, which she says she will use to help her connect with the big ball, which she says is possibly connected to at least 7 other wizards. Oh joy. Keywin brings out Elskon for cuddles, and Nafiko brings out Tyvar to assist. This forces Eclipse's hand, who feels the need to bring out his owl, which I imagine, like Eclipse, is shit at cuddling. Keywin is now being smothered by a bunch of ethereal cuties, which is a dope name for a Feywild war brothel. As they settle down for the rest, Eclipse and Nafiko speak of Voltalk and Nafiko's confusion over his point of view of her god, as well as the value he places in power. They seem to disagree on both accounts, but let's just see what they think next time Nafiko has to use her relentless endurance just to scrape up a scorched cat from the dirt. Just saying, war's pretty much marching towards them. From there, Nafiko will slowly approach Keywin, who looks spaced out, same face she has when she's given a simple math problem. Nafiko says that she's there for Keywin, who struggles with the guilt over her brother. Nafiko tries to reassure her and says that they could very well find him again. Yet Keywin is scared of what he may become by that point, possibly someone that is even more determined to accidentally get her killed. Shudder to think. Overall, the group puts her at ease with fond memories of her early meeting with Carrick, where she set a river on fire, killing hundreds of poor innocent fish. Oh, what a special day that was. Anyways, Voltalk's bad. Kai will finish her ritual. She learns a bit about the ball and how it amplifies magic. She also learns about Voltalk's plans and a bit about the other wizards connected to the ball. She tries to explain this interplanar concepts to the group, which is like Stephen Hawking giving a TED talk at a MAGA rally. Following this, Eclipse will finally have a real conversation with Light. He asks about her memories, of which she has some from her childhood and some of the more painful ones of becoming in her current state. She can't remember whether her parents are still alive, and both admit that they struggle to remember their faces. My bet is they were amongst the group in those cages that the good buddies left to their fate in Pyreal's castle. Let's see if they'll remember to go back or just leave them to rot. As they speak of future plans, Glib makes an appearance to say he doesn't want to find his parents, which is probably for the best. They're definitely dead, dude. He also takes some time to, of course, taunt Eclipse. This inevitably causes a slight schizophrenic infighting within Nafiko's skull. They'll rest through the night, 3 quiet watches, and as morning approaches, it dawns on them that they're close to the next full moon, meaning that there are sacrifices to be made. Keywin will send a message to Gwendolyn that Pyriel has been dealt with in an attempt to prevent those future sacrifices. Gwendolyn seemed a bit preoccupied with fighting a war, but acknowledged the heads up. From there, they realize that they now need to find a way out of this damn place, and following a draft, they head outside of the cavern. Still snowy and cold. Fuck all that, I'm over this shit. But there is one change that they can now see the sun, so they are actually better off than a lot of us fablers right now. What they don't see, though, is quite perplexing, as there are no signs of any constructs, no Durgar, ballistas are deactivated, it's just empty. Nafiko does remember the prisoners, though, so yay. So they do go back and find that the people are still within the cages, easily unlockable now. They are free, and they are seemingly no longer entranced and are happy to be freed. During this time, some books are also found too, including those on lichdom and perhaps another one of the artificer's journals. I assume there was also books on how to dance and a copy of how to make friends for dummies. With all the books there that are found, Kai does piece together that Voltalk is probably not dead and in fact wanted all of that to happen. And a bit on that cheerful news, they head off to find the honk truck that apparently traversed the frigid expanse on its own, which is great because they exploded the fuck out of that train. So admittedly, I was curious. They hop in and head to Travak. On the trip, Eclipse will try to pick the lock on the artificer's journal, and its defenses injure Eclipse in the process. Like the time I tried to get my son's toy out of the vent with a knife, 12 stitches later, that toy's still there. On the trip, Keywin notices a storm in the distance. What's worse, it's like before and seems to be targeting them. They debate on driving through it or having Kai weight the truck down. As they enter the heart of it, visibility dies, so they decide to stop and wait. She has to keep adjusting the truck's density to keep it from flying away, and after 15 minutes, she's spent. So they just have to hope that Elskon's fat ass is enough to keep him grounded. They manage to make it out unscathed and at around midnight are able to continue their travel. As they make it to Javak, they see a crowd gather around the platform with one person strapped to a beam. Crowd seems to be arguing as a separate person holding a torch walks over to the captor. Kiwin tries to push her way onto the stage, not making any headway. She grabs Nafako and they dimension door to the stage to interrupt the proceedings. They try to stop it all by explaining the situation. The guard asks for proof, and they have ashes, some ironclad shit there. Not sure how they could fake that. Oh, and they also have the fact that Kiwin died, but is back. So, again, solid evidence. It's also about this time that Kiwin and Nafako notice that it's not just any prisoner on stage, it's Janice strapped to that beam. So, okay, now I need a hashtag blame Solo in the chat, please. Kiwin is upset at the lack of communication between the towns as they have not yet received any word from Gwendolyn. After learning that they are now responsible for Janice, Kiwin, will storm off, mad at the whole situation. Nafako does manage to calm everyone as the guard really wants to believe what they say is true despite the lack of any evidence. Hope in one hand, shit in the other, that's what they say. But he will dispatch a rider to nearby towns to tell them to postpone their sacrifices. Meanwhile, Kiwin will head to her favorite shopkeep, Glim, over at the Broken Duck. He doesn't seem too interested in speaking with her, fearing that she will harm him. Reasonable assumption. She will eventually charm her way in and thanked him for the fucker statue, before telling him about Pyriel's demise, which earns her a hug. Forget Knack, I'm on the Glimwin train. To celebrate together, they plot to give his brother a heart attack. You'd think she'd be a little bit sore on that subject, but nah, she's up for the mindfuck. And after 4 minutes and 37 seconds of awkward, she gets removed from the store in time to meet Carrick, who had followed her to the shop. He takes her back towards the tavern, and I must say, she does seem a bit in better spirits, which is often the case when you take advantage of someone less intelligent than you. Speaking of less intelligent, once they get back to the tavern, they once again see Noble and Chills. After a quick drink, Noble will take his shift, and Chills definitely does not shack up with Kyriel. Once back in the room, Kiwin will release Elskon and try to send a message to Roland, but does not receive a response. So after fighting with the now teenage hormonal Yeti, she goes full depressed mom and just stares out into the darkness. Nafako will spend a bit of time trying to unlock the Artificer's journal, but this Dear Diary presents a set of challenges that are beyond Nafako's limited capacity. As a last resort, she just starts telling the book who she is, and fuck me, that works. So she stays up most of the night reading the text. It reads like a transcript of one of those old VHS tapes, recording Elida's childhood in between the sciencey stuff, which generally went from good-natured to psychobabble bullshit. The following morning, they wake up to an odd sensation, the warmth of the sun upon their dumb, ugly faces. I'm sorry, that was mean. I'm still just a little salty. Kiwin in particular is happy to see the sun and of course stares directly at it. Listen to all your parents out there. Don't raise Kiwin. Eclipse will waste no time meeting up with Nafako, who is currently Elida. She's short with him and is obviously pissy with him, throwing some serious passive-aggressive shade before Nafako takes back over and tries to smooth it all over with mild success. Meanwhile, Kiwin does message Knack to give him an update. She doesn't get much of a response as the dolt is in the process of accidentally burning himself. I assume it was accidental, but it is Solo. Following this second message, we get the situation totally cleared up. He was either quenching his hand or taking a piss. Nobody knows. Either way, she does learn that things are picking up for the worse in the area of Nightcrest. Following this, Elskon, who's obviously matured, again starts to give Kiwin shit. It's odd. Elskon has become sort of, I don't know, more refined, eloquent. Meanwhile, Kiwin is just, Kiwin. Conversation plays out like Richard Gere and Julia Roberts at the start of Pretty Woman. Before heading to breakfast, Eclipse checks in with Kiwin, and they do offer to help each other with whatever is needed. So, that's good to establish after each has almost or actually died multiple times at this point. Nafako will stay behind to read. She learns about a heart condition that she apparently had and how she was dying. She also learns of a Tabaxi girl who was brought to the Artificer who was also dying. He was unable to save the girl, so he transplanted the Tabaxi heart into Nafako. From there, multiple body systems started to fail, so the transplants continued to the point where he just started to hunt victims down for their organs. And from there, he sort of shifts his focus to improving Nafka. He spent so much time asking if he could, he never bothered to ask if he should. While this happens, Kiwan will head over to Jalil's shop to try and learn about the fate of her brother. She learns that there are a lot of creatures he could have made a deal with, and oh my God, Kiwan's going to become part warlock, isn't she? Calling it now. I'm calling it now. Hey, y'all. Hope you don't mind if I just go casting a couple Eldritch Blasts. Sorry, Diane. She does learn that her brother is not dead, but that there is an entity blocking communication. She gets some information on possible creatures that would make this sort of deal. So I'm so right on this. I know exactly where this is going. Back at the tavern, Eclipse will take some coffee over to Nafako, who's still reading. She gives him a brief update before delving into the fate of Light, the Tabaxi girl. Eclipse hears that his sister was dying and that she was used to help save Elida. Tough break when you consider the fact that Eclipse probably should have thanked the artificer instead of obliterating him, but hindsight. And as Kiwan wanders the town on her way back to the tavern, she meanders around talking to random people and animals, bless her heart. But she does get a message from Roland, wishing her well and letting her know that he is safe. And she responds looking for more information of his whereabouts, but the episode ends before any of us will get a response. So that is that. Kind of a different take for Realms. It was a lot of things that needed to be said, a lot of conversations that are started that should have been started probably a long time ago, that are good for our good buddies. So they will pick it up from there. They have a couple options on what to do. So it's really fair game. So we'll have to tune in on Wednesday at is it 6:30 Pacific to figure out what their next plan is, because we have no idea at this point. And that is it. I think I ran over a little bit, so I'm sorry. So I'll go ahead and enter raffle into the chat. Go ahead, and this will be the between show giveaway because we're not having the interview portion. So stick around for the next Color of Change special that is in like 15 minutes. So yeah, we will see you then. And for Fawks' sake, be nice to each other.